Francis sat in his air-conditioned office in Abuja, scrolling through his phone. His stomach growled like an angry lion. Lunchtime had passed, and he was starving. "Precious, my beautiful wife," he said into the phone, his voice sweet like honey. "I'm bringing home something special for dinner tonight. Trust me, you'll love it." Precious was at home with their two children, 8-year-old Ada and 6-year-old Chidi. She was busy folding clothes in the living room when Francis called. "Francis, please don't go to those dirty roadside places," Precious warned him. "You know how your stomach is. Remember last month when you ate that suya from that corner and—"
Woman, relax. I'm a grown man. I know what I'm doing.
Francis
Just
cut
wait
her
and
off.
see. Tonight we feast.
"I'm a grown man. I know what I'm doing. Just wait and see. Tonight we feast." Precious shook her head. Her husband was stubborn like a goat. No matter how many times she warned him, Francis always thought he knew better. Francis left his office at 5 o'clock. On his way home, he saw a new restaurant he had never noticed before. The sign read, "Mama Blessing's Kitchen, best food in Abuja." The building looked old and rough. Paint was peeling off the walls like dry skin. But Francis didn't care. The smell of fried chicken was calling him like a siren calls sailors. He parked his car and walked inside. Before we continue this story, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Your support means everything to me. Please drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, America, UK. I want to know. Now, let's get back to Francis and his bad decision. The inside of Mama Blessing's kitchen was worse than the outside. The floor was sticky under Francis's shoes. Flies danced around like they owned the place. The tables had old food stains that nobody bothered to clean. A heavy woman with a wrapper tied around her waist came out from the back. Her apron was so dirty it looked like she had been using it for a year without washing. "Welcome, my customer," she shouted, her voice loud enough to wake the dead. "What do you want to eat? We have jollof rice and fried rice, we have chicken and fish, we have everything." Francis looked around. Something in his spirit told him to run. His wife's voice echoed in his head. "Don't go to dirty places, Francis. Don't do it." But his pride was bigger than his common sense. "Give me your party pack," Francis said, pointing at the menu on the wall. "I want enough food for 4 people. Jollof rice, fried rice, chicken, plantain, everything." Mama Blessing smiled, showing her gap teeth. "Ah, big man, you want to impress your family? No worry, I will give you the best food." She disappeared into the kitchen. Through the open door, Francis could see the cooking area. It was a disaster. Pots were black, with old burnt food. The sink was full of dirty plates that had been there for days. Cockroaches ran across the counter like they were in a marathon race. A young girl with dirty hands was cutting vegetables on a wooden board that had never seen soap. She wiped sweat from her forehead with the same hand she was using to touch the food. Francis's stomach turned. He wanted to leave, but he had already paid 5,000 naira. His pocket didn't allow him to waste money like that. 20 minutes later, Mama Blessing came out with 4 large takeaway packs. The smell was strong, maybe too strong, like she had poured a whole bottle of seasoning to cover up something. "Here, sir," she said, handing him the bags. "Your family will enjoy this food well. Francis took the bags and hurried to his car. The food felt warm in his hands. He told himself everything would be fine. He told himself Precious was just worrying too much as usual. He was wrong. Francis got home 30 minutes later. The sun was setting, painting the Abuja sky orange and purple. He walked into their 3-bedroom flat with the food bags held high like a trophy. "Daddy's home," he announced like a king entering his palace. Ada and Chidi ran to him, jumping up and down. "Daddy, Daddy, what did you bring? What did you bring?" Precious came out from the kitchen, wiping her wet hands on her apron. She had been preparing vegetables for dinner before Francis called. "Francis, you're back," she said, smiling. Then she saw the bags. Then she smelled the food. Her smile died like a phone with low battery. "Where did you buy this food from?" she asked, her voice suddenly serious. A new place? Francis said proudly. Mama Blessing's kitchen. The food smells amazing, right? I told you to trust me. Precious walked closer and opened one of the bags. The jollof rice looked too red, like someone had poured a full bottle of food coloring. The chicken was dark and oily. The plantain looked like it had been fried in oil that had been used 1,000 times. Francis, Precious started. Woman, what is it now? Francis snapped. Can't you just be grateful? I spent my hard-earned money to buy food for this family, and all you do is complain. You complain too much, Precious, too much. The children stood quiet. They knew that tone. When Daddy used that tone, it was better to keep your mouth shut. Precious swallowed her words. She knew arguing with Francis when he was like this was like trying to sweep water with a broom, useless and frustrating. Okay, she said softly, let's eat. They sat at the dining table. Francis dished out the food like he was serving a feast at a wedding. He gave himself the biggest portions of everything. He gave the children smaller portions. He gave Precious a medium amount. Precious looked at her plate. Everything in her body was screaming, "Don't eat this food. Something is wrong." But she didn't want to disrespect her husband in front of the children. She took a small spoon of jollof rice. It tasted strange, too salty, too oily, like something was hiding underneath all that seasoning. The children ate slowly, making faces but not wanting to complain. Francis, however, ate like a man who hadn't seen food in weeks. He finished his plate and went for seconds, then thirds. "This food is delicious," he said with his mouth full. "See, you people were doubting me. Mama Blessing knows how to cook." Precious pushed her food around her plate. She managed to eat about half before she couldn't take any more. Something was definitely wrong with this food. Ada whispered to her mother. "Mommy, my stomach is hurting small." Precious touched her daughter's forehead. "Go and lie down, my baby. Chidi, you too. Go and rest." Francis was too busy eating to notice anything. He finished the last piece of chicken and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his full belly. "That was a good meal," he said, satisfied. Precious cleared the table in silence. She packed the leftover food and put it in the fridge, even though every bone in her body wanted to throw it in the trash. 3 hours later, the trouble started. Precious was in bed reading when she heard a sound from the children's room. She rushed there and found Ada bent over, vomiting into the small bucket they kept for emergencies. "Mommy," Ada cried, tears running down her face. "My stomach hurts so bad." Chidi was curled up on his bed, holding his stomach and crying softly. Precious's heart nearly stopped. She ran to get water and towels. As she passed the living room, she saw Francis running to the bathroom, his hand over his mouth. The next few minutes were chaos. Everyone was sick. The children were vomiting. Precious felt her own stomach turning like a washing machine. But Francis had it the worst. He was in the bathroom, vomiting and having serious stomach problems at the same time. The man who had eaten 3 full plates of food was now paying the price. "Precious," he called out weakly. "Precious, I think I'm dying." Despite her own pain, Precious had to be strong. She called her neighbor, Mrs. Okonkwo, who rushed over to help. Together, they managed to get everyone into the car. The drive to the hospital felt like the longest journey of Precious's life. Ada was crying. Chidi was moaning. Francis was groaning in the passenger seat, his face pale like a ghost. At the emergency room, nurses rushed them in. The doctor, a young woman named Dr. Amaka, examined them one by one. "Food poisoning," she said, shaking her head. "Severe food poisoning. Where did you people eat?" Francis was too sick to answer. Precious explained everything while trying not to cry. Dr. Amaka's face became serious. The meat was probably spoiled, old meat that had gone bad. Some restaurants hide the smell and taste with plenty of pepper and seasoning. People don't notice until it's too late. Precious felt her anger rising like hot water boiling. She had warned him. She had told him not to eat from random places. But Francis never listened. The children were given IV drips and medicine. They responded quickly because they had eaten very little. Precious also recovered fast because she had barely touched the food. But Francis? Francis was admitted to the hospital. He had eaten so much of the bad food that his body was in shock. His stomach was on fire. He couldn't stop vomiting. He had a high fever. Every part of his body ached. For 3 days, Francis lay in that hospital bed, suffering. He couldn't eat anything. Even water made him sick. The doctors pumped his stomach. They gave him strong antibiotics. They monitored him around the clock. Precious sat by his bedside, watching him suffer. Part of her felt sorry for him, but another part of her was angry, so angry. "I told you," she said on the 3rd day, her voice quiet but firm. "I told you not to eat from dirty places. I told you to be careful. But you never listen to me, Francis. You treat my words like they mean nothing." Francis tried to speak, but his throat was too sore. All he could do was look at her with regret in his eyes. On the 4th day, he was finally able to talk. His voice came out like a whisper. "I'm sorry," he said. "You were right. I should have listened." Precious nodded. "Sorry is good, Francis, but sorry is not enough." On the 7th day, Francis was discharged from the hospital. He had lost so much weight that his clothes hung on him like they were 3 sizes too big. He could barely walk without feeling dizzy. The hospital bill was 150,000 naira. 150,000 naira because Francis was too stubborn to listen to his wife. The money they had been saving for Ada's school fees was gone. Just like that. When they got home, Francis collapsed on the sofa. He thought he could finally rest. He thought the worst was over. He was wrong again. Precious stood in front of him, with her arms crossed. Her face was not smiling. "Francis, get up," she said. "Baby, please, I'm tired." Francis groaned. "Let me rest small." "Get up." Precious's voice had that tone, the tone that meant business. Francis slowly sat up, confused. "What is it?" Precious went to the storage room and came back with a mop, a bucket, cleaning soap, a scrubbing brush, and rubber gloves. "You're going to clean this entire house," she said, dropping everything at his feet. From top to bottom, every single room, every corner, the kitchen, the bathrooms, the bedrooms, the living room, everywhere. Francis's eyes grew wide. "Precious, I just came from the hospital. I'm weak. I can barely stand." "You were strong enough to ignore my warnings," Precious said, her voice like steel. "You were strong enough to risk your children's lives. Now, you're strong enough to clean." "But..." "No buts, Francis. You want to know about cleanliness and hygiene? You're going to learn. Today. Right now." The children watched from their bedroom door, their eyes big with surprise. They had never seen their mother like this before. Francis tried to argue, but Precious was not having it. She made him start with the kitchen. He had to scrub every pot, every plate, every surface until it shined. His arms ached. His back hurt. But Precious stood there, watching him like a prison guard. "Clean under the sink, Francis. There's dirt there. Scrub that stove properly. I can still see grease. Wash those plates again. I can see a stain." For 4 hours, Francis cleaned the kitchen. By the time he was done, he could barely lift his arms. "Can I rest now?" he begged. "No," Precious said. "Living room next." Francis wanted to cry, but he knew he deserved this. He had put his entire family in danger because of his pride and stubbornness. He cleaned the living room. He swept, mopped, dusted, and wiped until everything sparkled. Then came the bathrooms. Precious made him scrub the toilets with his bare hands, wearing gloves, but still. She made him clean the tiles, the mirrors, the sinks. By evening, Francis was ready to collapse, but Precious wasn't done. "Tomorrow," she said, "you're going to learn how to cook properly." "What?" Francis couldn't believe his ears. "You heard me. I'm enrolling you in a cooking class. You're going to learn about food hygiene, food safety, and how to cook clean, healthy meals." "Precious, that's too much." "No, Francis. What's too much is almost killing your family because you were too proud to admit I was right. What's too much is wasting 150,000 naira on hospital bills. What's too much is making your children suffer because you couldn't control your appetite. Francis had no answer to that. She was absolutely right. The next day, weak and sore from all the cleaning, Francis found himself in a cooking class at a local community center. The instructor, Chef Tunde, was a no-nonsense man who believed cleanliness was next to godliness. First rule of cooking, Chef Tunde said, wash your hands properly, not just rinse. Wash, with soap, for at least 20 seconds. Francis washed his hands under Chef Tunde's strict supervision. Second rule, your cooking area must be clean. No dirt, no flies, no nonsense. For the next 4 weeks, Francis attended cooking classes every evening after work. Precious made sure of it. She drove him there herself and waited to drive him back. He learned how to identify fresh meat from spoiled meat. He learned how to check if vegetables were good or bad. He learned about food storage, cross-contamination, and proper cooking temperatures. But the hardest part was yet to come. Precious announced that for the next month, Francis would be in charge of cooking all family meals. Every breakfast, every lunch, every dinner, she said. You will cook, and I will inspect your kitchen before and after. If I find any dirt, any mess, any sign that you're being careless, you start over. Francis wanted to argue, but the memory of lying in that hospital bed, feeling like death was knocking on his door, was still fresh. The memory of seeing his children suffer because of his stupidity kept him quiet. So he cooked. Every morning, he woke up early to prepare breakfast. He washed his hands properly. He cleaned the counter. He made sure every vegetable was fresh, every ingredient was good. Precious watched him like a hawk. If she saw even a small spot of dirt, she made him clean everything and start again. Check that chicken properly, Francis. Is it fresh? Wash those tomatoes again. I can see dirt. Clean that knife before you use it on something else. Francis's hands got rough from washing dishes. His back ached from standing at the stove. His feet hurt from standing so long. There were days he wanted to beg Precious to let him rest, to let him order food from a restaurant. But then he would remember Mama Blessing's kitchen. He would remember the dirty apron, the cockroaches, the flies. He would remember his children's tears as they vomited. He would remember the hospital bed. And he would keep cooking. 1 month passed, then 2 months. Francis became good at cooking. Not just good, really good. He learned his wife's recipes and even created some of his own. The children started asking for Daddy's special rice and Daddy's chicken stew. But more than that, Francis learned respect. He learned to respect his wife's wisdom. All those times Precious had warned him about eating from random places. She wasn't nagging. She was protecting him. She was protecting their family. He learned to respect cleanliness and hygiene. He understood now why his wife insisted on washing fruits before eating them, why she always checked expiration dates, why she refused to buy meat from certain places. He learned that saving a little bit of money wasn't worth risking your health and your family's safety. One Sunday evening, the family sat together at the dining table, eating Francis's homemade jollof rice with grilled chicken and fresh salad. The children were laughing, talking about their week at school. Precious looked at her husband. He looked different now, humble, grateful, wiser. The food is delicious, Francis, she said, smiling. Francis smiled back. Thank you, my wife, and thank you for teaching me this lesson. I know I was stubborn. I know I almost destroyed our family because of my pride. I'm sorry it took me getting so sick for me to listen to you. Precious reached across the table and held his hand. We all make mistakes, Francis. What matters is that you learned from it. Ada, always the observant one, looked up from her plate. Daddy, can we go back to Mama Blessing's kitchen? Never, Francis and Precious said at the same time, then burst out laughing. Never again, Francis repeated, shaking his head. From now on, we only eat from clean places. Or better yet, we eat Daddy's cooking. Chidi clapped his hands. Yay! Daddy's cooking is the best. Francis felt his heart swell with love. This was what mattered. Not his pride, not his stubbornness, his family, their health, their happiness. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Francis and Precious sat on their balcony, looking at the Abuja skyline. I never want to see the inside of a hospital emergency room again, Francis said. Then keep listening to your wife, Precious teased. I know things, you know. Francis pulled her close. You do know things. And from now on, I promise to listen. No more random restaurants. No more ignoring your warnings. No more putting my pride before my family's safety. Precious kissed his cheek. That's all I wanted to hear. 3 months after the Mama Blessing incident, Francis drove past that same restaurant. It was closed down. A big sign from the health department was on the door. Shut down for health violations. Francis shook his head and kept driving. He thought about all the other people who might have eaten there. He thought about how lucky he was to have survived. He thought about how lucky he was to have a wife who loved him enough to teach him a hard lesson instead of just leaving him to his foolishness. These days, when Francis's friends at work talk about trying new restaurants, he's the first one to ask questions. Is the place clean? Have you checked the reviews? Does it look hygienic? His friends tease him, calling him Health Inspector Francis. But Francis doesn't care. He learned his lesson, and it was a lesson he would never forget. The hidden dangers of eating at any random restaurant are real. They're not just stories people tell to scare you. They can send you to the hospital. They can waste your money. They can put your family at risk. But more than that, Francis learned that pride can be dangerous. Refusing to listen to people who care about you can be dangerous. Thinking you always know better can be dangerous. Now, Francis is humble. He listens to his wife. He takes her advice seriously. And most importantly, he never, ever eats at random restaurants without checking them out first. And if the place looks dirty, he remembers Mama Blessing's kitchen and he keeps driving. Because some lessons in life come with a price. Francis paid his price, and he had no intention of paying it again. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our stories. Share this video with your friends and family. Someone needs to hear this message today. I want you to know that I see every single comment you leave. I read them, I smile at them, and they give me so much joy. Your comments and engagement are not just numbers to me. They keep me going. They inspire me to bring you more stories. This is not just a random page. You are not just random viewers. You are family. You are part of the Tales by Teemee family, and I love each and every one of you so much. Drop a comment below and tell me what you learned from Francis's story. Have you or someone you know had a similar experience? Let's talk about it. Until next time, stay safe, eat clean, and always listen to the people who love you. This is Tales by Teemee, and I'll see you in the next story. God bless you all.